Welcome to our 5th annual Be Amazing event. We are very excited to have you with us today to get a peek inside of Lodi House. This is by far our favorite event where we invite you in to get to know what amazing work is being done in this incredible organization. We could not have made today possible without our Be Amazing sponsors. Today our sponsors are Flatlander Painting Company, Edward Jones Investments with Jeremy Lenser, Kettleman Station, the Lodi House Board of Directors, Lodi House Thrift Store, Lodi Police Association, Plastic Surgery Center of Stockton, Pinnell's Flooring America, Sasaki Accounting Corporation, State Farm with Pam Albregi, Smith & Johnson Law, and Truex Insurance with James Watt. Again, we're super happy you're here with us. We want you to sit back, relax, and enjoy what we have in store for you. I'd like to introduce now the founder of Lodi House, Annette Murdoka.
Hello everybody, I'm back. Unfortunately, I'm back virtually again. We were hoping that we would be able to do this live. However, we're going to be safe one more year, and so Shelby asked me to do the invocation, which is always a privilege for Lodi House. So if we could bow our heads and take a moment to put our Lord first, let us pray. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. O Spirit of God, breathe on us. Fill us with life anew, that we may love the things you love and do what you would have us do. Breathe on us, Lord, this day. Be amazing each and every day. Help us, Lord. Help us to be amazing in a desire to help each other as women of faith. Help us to be amazing by sharing with Lodi House our personal God-given talents. Help us to be amazing by sharing with Lodi House our God-given treasures. Help us, Lord, to be amazing with Lodi House, our God-given time to help others. Help us to be amazing by encouraging one another, to be amazing by mentoring to women in need, in pain. Help us to be amazing in praying for others and putting others first. Help us to be amazing today as we feel your warm breath upon us, to stir our hearts to do your work, to make a difference. Breathe on us your warm and loving breath, O God. Fill us with life anew, that we may love the things you love and do what you would have us do, to be amazing. In the resurrection of Jesus Christ, amen.
I want to tell you that you are amazing. And I want to thank you for taking the time to be part of Be Amazing Together this year. It means so much to us. I understand that there could be lots of things that you could be doing with your time, and you have decided to give time to learn more about the transformation and impact Lodi House is having on our community. It's especially significant in this difficult season where we can't gather together in person. I think that it's important for us to acknowledge what we have been through, especially in light of Lodi House's mission and purpose to provide compassionate support, counseling, and shelter to homeless women and children, to empower them to live courageous, healthy, independent lives. I believe that it's because of the trials we face this year that we sit in a position to better identify with the women and children that we serve at Lodi House. Relationships are the bridge that Lodi House builds to help women and children overcome instability and homelessness. Today, it is my desire that you not only learn about Lodi House, but that you would know that you are not alone in your woundedness. We all have struggles, and we all need each other. I hope you will be encouraged in learning more about the wounded heart and hearing the testimony of a Lodi House guest who is in the process of having her wounded heart be healed through relationship. A once tragic and heartbreaking story being transformed into a beautiful piece of art. Lodi House's program director, Crystal Wright, is going to take you on that journey today. Enjoy.
So at Lodi House, one of the things we talk a lot about is relationship, and there's a really important reason for that. And the reason is that relationships really are key to understanding what has brought someone into homelessness and the trauma that they've experienced. And it's also key in understanding how women are able to overcome and to get out of the cycle of homelessness. So I've learned over my years of doing this that when people walk into a shelter, they're actually coming not because they've just ran out of housing or they've just ran out of money or a job. Women come into shelters because they've actually ran out of all of their relationships at that point and they have nowhere else to turn to. So I was seeing this over and over, women coming in and their reason for being homeless, and then I would listen to their stories and hear them talk about just their life history and all of the things that they've experienced. And the thing that stood out in all of that was the significance of the relationships in their life and whether those relationships had been healthy and stable or whether they had experienced a lot of trauma. And so that's why it's so important to us at Lodi House to talk about relationship. And the truth is, all of us have been hurt at some point in time in our lives by another human being. So that's just a true human experience. But when it comes to homelessness, and all the studies over the last 15 years have really started to dig deeper into this aspect of the cause of homelessness, but they've really began to see a huge connection between homelessness and that cycle as it stems all the way back to early childhood trauma and experiencing a real breakdown in the most significant relationships that are in their lives.
My name is Samantha and I'm 31 years old. Growing up with my great aunt and uncle was a very big blessing. They took care of me to the best of their ability. They made sure I had all my necessities. So I was left on their doorstep when I was 2 months old, and they went ahead and got custody of me. I became really sick and they needed a doctor's note. So they went looking for my mother, and when she got the doctor's note signed, she also signed her parental rights, not realizing it. The relationship with my biological mother and my family, well, it was up to me, my choice, if I wanted to have any relationship with them growing up, and I did. I missed them a lot, and I was confused on to why I couldn't be with them. I didn't understand why, and it hurt. I felt like I was living in two different worlds. When I was living with my great aunt and uncle, I was loved, respected, and cared about. When I was able to go see my mom and my siblings, I felt abandoned, neglected, and unwanted. I was hurt and confused as to why certain things were only happening to me when I would go visit, but not to any other kids. Why did my mom yell at me, hit me, and then let men do things to me? It hurt so bad and I had no way to express it. I would cry myself to sleep in fear under the bed with a baby bottle of 7-Up and my sister's baby blanket, and her laying in front of me in the dark. I couldn't wait until daylight when my great aunt and uncle would come get me. I was unable to express what was going on since I was so young.
You know, one way of putting it is trauma is a key cause of homelessness. And then once you're in homelessness, the exposure and the risk of continued trauma just builds and escalates. The traumas that are really, really common in homelessness is early childhood abuse, abandonment, neglect. Majority of women that enter into shelters have experienced significant violence in their lives, physical and sexual violence. There's been a lot of loss, typically a lot of death. For most of them, they've had significant relationships in their life that have impacted them in a traumatic or a painful way. One of the key things that we talk about at Lodi House is understanding trauma and the wounded heart. And we believe there's 5 characteristics that happen in our lives when we've been significantly wounded. And those 5 things are: we develop distorted thinking about ourselves, our value, and others. The second is we develop survival behaviors that help us cope. The third is we have areas of our life where we are emotionally childlike because the trauma has actually gotten in the way of the emotional development. The fourth is that when we've experienced trauma or when we are wounded, we are actually grieving. And the fifth aspect of having a wounded heart is that we develop addictions because we have to find a way to cope with the pain. So when we think about that, even as a staff, we really look at our own areas in our life, because as humans, we've all experienced wounding at some point in time in our lives. And so we look at our own lives and where we've experienced that and where we've grown and what we've learned through that. And that's what we're able to share then with women that are coming in the doors for help. And we're able to see them through that perspective, that they're not just their circumstances or whatever chaos is going on in their lives, that they are a wounded woman or a wounded child who needs a safe place to grow and to connect.
So when my grandmother died, I didn't really have a relationship with my grandmother. I would only go to her house to see my siblings. When she passed away, my sister became mom, and she took care of my brother. And so when I would go and try to find them, there's days where I'd just cry out of nowhere, and my great aunt and uncle would bring me to Stockton to look for them. And sometimes I didn't get to see them, and it was very heartbreaking. It really messed with my emotions. And I started hurting so bad I became angry with my family. So I had a better relationship with my brother than my sister. I'd hang out with him and his friends, and they were already experimenting in drugs and alcohol. And so when I was 10, I would go and I would smoke marijuana with them, just to be away from the house where my mom was with her men. So that way I would just go and be with my brother because I felt protected. So alcohol at first was family traditions, holidays. You know, it was a normal thing for our family to drink and let kids experiment with it. You know, you can have a drink here, or sip here. And then it got to the point where I would be so hurt and I didn't want to feel what I was feeling. I started hanging out with people and we were drinking together.
Some of the lies that can come out of experiencing trauma, especially when the trauma comes from our closest relationships and those people in our lives that we look to actually protect us and to love us well. Those lies typically are things that we start to believe about ourselves. When we go through trauma, we have to try to make sense of it. And when we're children and we experience trauma, we don't have the framework to understand what's really happening. And so we do our best to interpret what's going on. And that often looks like making drawing false conclusions to who we are and what's going on around. So common lies from trauma sound like, it would have been better if I'd never been born. I'm just in the way. Or it sounds like I'm the mistake and I'm just always gonna fail. Or I'm stupid, or no one's ever really gonna love me. If people really knew me, then they wouldn't really like me or love me. And so those lies really take shape in a person's heart and their mind, and those lies cause a lot of pain, and the only way to deal with that pain is to develop coping and survival behaviors.
So I learned that I had trauma first before I knew I had become an addict. Like I said, growing up, it was very scary. There's a lot of anxiety and depression that went through with that, and I didn't like the feelings that I felt. So because I feel those things, I learned that my drug of choice could help numb those, even though the problem would still be there. I didn't realize that. I just wanted it to go away, and it was a temporary fix. And then it got to the point where when my life became unmanageable because of it, it was just I couldn't stop no more. Due to the amount of trauma I experienced, I always lived in survival mode. The most dangerous places in Stockton, it became my safe haven. Living in trenches, living in tents, living in parks, I felt more comfortable in those places than a shelter or my sister's place. And then I used drugs and alcohol on top of that to numb the pain. When I was in domestic violence, I've been physically and emotionally sexually abused my whole life, but when I became into a domestic violence relationship, I was falling in love with my abuser. I was putting my abuser in front of myself and my children. I didn't care. It was either the drugs or him and nothing else. My kids had gotten taken away, and that wasn't even enough for me to stop with him or even with my addiction. It was just I was very powerless over everything. I started to believe that I was fat, weak, and I was going to grow up to be just like my mom. I wasn't going to be a good mother. I didn't understand why it was so hard to love me. Because of that, I would push people away from me.
So another really significant aspect of understanding a wounded heart is to look at the topic of grief. And this one tends to be a little bit more hidden than some of the other experiences that a woman has. And that's because we don't talk a lot about grief, but grief is always connected to loss in our lives. And when someone has experienced homelessness or they've experienced trauma, what actually ends up happening is they have one loss after another that is just piled on top of each other and never dealt with.
I was in a domestic violence situation that I couldn't get out of, and my kids were taken away from me. I was on my deathbed, malnourished and losing my bodily fluids, lethargic, walking up and down the streets of Stockton, not realizing where I was going or what I was doing. I was giving up on myself and giving up hope, losing faith in everything. I was too ashamed to reach out for help and just wanted things to end quickly.
Another aspect of relationship and walking alongside women is when they do start to grieve, they don't have to hold on to their old coping behaviors so hard, because there's actually healing that's happening for them, and they're actually being able to make peace about things in their past that have happened, and they begin to get hope about the future. And so that's a really significant aspect of moving out of those destructive survival behaviors. A woman has to be willing to deal with grief. And women will not deal with grief unless they feel safe and connected to other people. And so that's a key aspect of walking alongside women and sharing their story with them, sharing their life. And when women are willing to grieve, they actually invite their children to be honest and authentic as well, which is really important because kids are naturally, they want to caretake and make sure the family's okay. So when women come into shelters, oftentimes their children are in the parental role where they're trying to take care of mom, they're trying to make sure things are okay. And when mom is willing to grieve and to get honest, it actually invites the children into being able to be kids again and to know that it's all right to be sad and to not have to be responsible and to let mom take that parental role again.
So I just hit my 1 year mark for being clean and sober. I'm very plugged in and engaging into my recovery. I take my life and my recovery very serious. I'm able to see things clearer now and why I became the way I was. I'm now able to be that mother my children need me to be and that I deserve to be. I've always wanted to be there for them, but I just was in a very bad funk with my addiction, and now I get to be a mother that my mom wasn't to me. My kids, oh my gosh, they're characters. So I love each one of their, little personalities, and it's crazy because I can actually see that with a clear mind today. Like, I know their favorite colors, I know their favorite little songs, like Baby Shark or Gummy Bear song, or different cartoons they like to do, and they have that unconditional love still. Like, even though they've been traumatized as well, I'm helping get them through that and know that they don't have to live like that. You know, they don't have to grow up and be able to see different kind of red flags, or, you know, if they're scared, I can help them through that today. You know, I could help them with their feelings and emotions, and they don't have to worry about being, you know, not able to talk to me about things. So today I was coming home from Starbucks and Walmart, and my daughter a couple weeks ago had showed me a roly-poly little bug, and I let her bring it in the car, and she was so excited because she got to help feed it and take care of it, and it got lost in my back seat. So then because of that, I was getting out of the car today in front of the house, and I seen a roly-poly, and the kid came out at me. Like, I was so excited. I was like, oh my gosh. And I told my friend, I was like, we got to take care of it. Look up online how to take care of a roly-poly. And we did. And so now I have a roly-poly named Ollie in my room waiting for my children tomorrow.
I think when we get to that place where we can look back and see how so much of what we've started doing in life was coming out of pain, I think it really changes our perspective of ourselves and others, because it moves from shame and all those things that we just felt like lousy about ourselves or about life or condemnation. It takes it from a place of shame and moves it to a place of relationship and a place of grace, because we're able to look back and say, well, of course at 3 years old, I had no idea how to cope with what was happening. Of course, like, oh, that's the lie that I've been believing for so long. Oh my goodness, like when we can actually recognize that, and other people often help us in that process, it really flips it. And I think that's where freedom and the growth and the healing comes, because it's not about shame anymore. It's not about the shame of our survival behaviors or things that we've been through, or even the lies that other people have helped plant into our lives. It's now about grace and freedom and growth and making, you know, that door open again to relationships in our lives. So,
well, I can now say that I am beautiful. I'm worth something. Or worthy of. Actually, not something. I have that independency now. I'm a survivor. I'm an overcomer instead of a victim of what has happened in my life. Well, first off, I want to say the relationship with my kids, even though they're small, like they didn't lose hope in me. They didn't lose that faith. And I'm truly grateful for the foster mom that they got, because she has been behind my back 100%. Even in my addiction, like, she prayed for me. Her and the kids would kneel at the bed and pray for me just to get better and to, you know, get healthy. And she always wanted me to have them back. So I'd have to say, Rama, coming to the Lodi House, I have all of the staff there. I have new little sisters in recovery, and everyone is just so, it's something that I never experienced or wanted to have in my life. Like, this is part of my growth, and I knew that I had to change something. And if it was trusting others, like, Lodi House is the best place that has helped me do that. And so that place, and my great aunt, she's been behind me 100%. My great uncle would have, but he passed away a couple months ago. But they've just always been there for me to help support me. And so with that, I spent a couple times in program, and each time there was a seed planted, but it just wasn't enough until I got plugged in and asked for help. Don't ever be afraid to not ask for help, because that's what you need.
So we've talked a lot about some really heavy things, and I know it can start to feel hopeless when we think about all the experiences that women have gone through and how do they get to the other side. And the truth is that we only heal in context of relationship with other people. So yes, it is relationships that have often hurt us or caused some of our deepest wounds, but it's also relationships that help bring healing. And there was a study done several years ago now that looked at those key traumas and adverse childhood experiences and how they impacted a person's life. But they also did a study that looked at what is it that helps people to overcome? What is it that creates resiliency and gives people strength? And what they found was, yes, trauma did create a connection towards homelessness and addictions and the breakdown of a person's health, but they also found that healthy relationships and support was the biggest influence in people having resiliency and being able to overcome those experiences and to be able to thrive and to have hope and purpose in life again. And so I think that's the beauty of what Lodi House is able to provide. We are able to be that place of safety for a woman, that place where she's experiencing people in her life that are for her, that want good for her and her children, that want to encourage and to really model that healthy relationship with her. And as she begins to experience that, there's so much hope. There's so much hope to the wounded heart, honestly. There's so much healing that can happen and strength that can come from people's stories when they are able to begin to see their value and their worth, and they have people that speak that over them and encourage them in that and help them to grieve, help them to let go of those coping behaviors and really put the things in their life that are valuable to them, the things that they want to have, the joy, the celebration, the times with their kids, the good memories, having goals and dreams for the future. And all of that is connected to people. It doesn't happen in isolation. And so thank you guys for your part in helping support Lodi House.
Thank you again so much for joining us today. There is no question that we are amazing together, and we thank you for just being a part of your role with Lodi House. And we want to let you know that today we have 5 amazing people who've decided to partner with us and make a $20,000 matching donation opportunity. So we want to take a minute to really thank ICR Refrigeration, Jim and Annette Murdaka, Marty and Christy Waybrett, Tiger Lines, and Ellers Insurance. Okay, the challenge has been placed. They are willing to donate $20,000 to match any donation we're able to raise between now and April 30th. So if you're willing to give $100 today, that quickly becomes $200 thanks to them. So we need your help to get there. We could potentially raise over $40,000, which would be amazing. And not only would you be helping to change Lodi House and the lives that we touch, but you also have a chance to enter to win this incredible painting that you watched transform through this video. So please take a moment to donate. You can text the word GIVE to 916-299-9678. You can donate through lodihouse.org, or you can even send us a check to the address. However you do it, we just want you to know how much we appreciate it. There is no question that we have the ability to be amazing together. Thank you so much.